Last week on Diversification Sunday, we talked about solar panels, and that is what is over them skylights, because the skylights should look like that, but obviously the south-facing roof is full of solar panels. Anyway, I'm in one of the stores here, so this is what we call store 3. This is probably the biggest one. It's 120 foot by 100 foot wide, and then there's 20 foot at the end. It's like a bay that we can tip wet grain in, or sort of loads that we want to reject, and solar panels. So this is another bit of diversification on the farm. This is what we'd call a commercial store. So basically we store our grain in here, and we also store grain for the local cooperative. So the local cooperative to us is, well, it's a national cooperative, but the local farmers within that cooperative, which is called Openfield, store their oilseed rape here. Why is it here? There's only a couple of places in the UK that crush oilseed rape to make the oil. One of them's in Liverpool and one of them's near London. So anything sort of like north, but when I say north, I mean Midlands onwards, even Worcester, could be carted here, because when they get it nearer to where it's going to be processed, it's worth more money because it's got less haulage. So it makes sense to store it as close to where the end user is going to be. That is why it's here. So we're the last sort of bit of farmland before you get into the city, and then once you travel through the city, you get to where the docks is, and that's where the crush plant is. It's at the docks, because that means they can boat load it in if they need to. So this store at the time cost around, the time we'd finished, just short of 120,000, I think it was. So that's including the concrete floor, the structure, the walls, and all the electronics, so the fans, the sensors and things within the shed that monitor the grain. The payback for putting 3,000 tonne, which we were on contract for, into the shed, would pay the shed off within 5 years. It wouldn't pay us any labour to do that, but it meant the shed would be paid off really quick. So we built the store, had a contract for 3 years, carried on, and with the shed now, I think it's coming up to its 6th season, was it 7th? Might be its 7th. It's been filled, I think, 6 times. 2015, and then we're now 2022 coming up, aren't we? Yeah, so we filled it 6 times. We've actually filled it 7, to be fair, because we stored some sugar beet in it last year. So it's paid for now, so anything we store in it is a bonus, because the fabric of the shed and the building has all been paid off. So it was a pretty good investment. It meant that we didn't have to put our own shed up just to store our own oilseed rape. It meant that we were sort of like sharing the cost with lots of other farmers, although we charge a tonnage for the grain coming in, and we then get paid a tonnage for storing it as well. So the farmers that store in here actually pay about £3 less than the cooperative pay us, because they've added £5 or whatever to it by moving it up here. So it works really well for everyone, including us, and it gives us something to do in the winter, outloading grain. It's a pretty standard shed, concrete panels. We did originally spec it a little bit too small, not quite strong enough for storing oilseed rape, and surcharged, and we did start to nearly buckle them steelwork. And if we'd have told the shed manufacturer that it was going to be for oilseed rape, surcharge basically heaped up as high as we can get it, he would have changed the steel. So it has got a different wall now behind that one, and we store grain the other side of that, which has got a lot stronger steel in it, and we may take this wall out and move it back. It's got the electric sort of control system in, which one of the fans is up there now. You remember me taking one off this week. That is computer controlled, measuring the temperature of the outside air and the temperature of the product. Every time there's a 5-degree differential, the fans will turn on and pull cool air through the product. So this oilseed rape here came in the summer around 25 degrees. It's now around 7, because it's cooled it overnight and got it. So it's basically like a big fridge. If it's hot, it sweats. If it sweats, it's got moisture in it, then it gets wet, and it just keeps spiraling, and you can end up with it. It doesn't really go on fire, but it superheats and starts to rot and go mouldy. So that is why it's important to store it correctly in a decent shed with the correct sort of cooling capacity. I'll go over here and I'll show you how the electrics work, and then you'll understand a little bit more. So we've got a fan there sat up on a pedestal. Pedestal goes down into the crop, so there's little perforations in the bottom of this pedestal, and then there's loads of these sensors, if it zooms in, sat in it. I'll go and find the one that's not in the pile, you'll see better. And that basically turns that fan on and sucks air through the pile. This is what one of them tubes looks like. It's just a perforated tube, and it means that the grain won't go through the holes, but air will, and it's that's what we use to suck air through it, with a fan on the top. Because oilseed rape is quite fine, we wrap hessian around the tubes at the bottom so that the oilseed rape doesn't fall through the little holes, because these holes are quite big. There's some of the fans up there just stored out the way that suck the air through when they need to, and then they're controlled by these little boxes. So each one of these has a little aerial on the top, and then the temperature probe goes down into the grain and then measures the temperature. They're about, I don't know, 4 or 5 foot long perhaps. They take a temperature reading, boom it up to a computer up there that sends it via a SIM card to another computer that decides whether the fan should come on or not, and then they turn on automatically. This is the bay outside the shed. At the moment it's got a bit of fertiliser in it, so if there's any loads that can't go inside the shed because they don't meet spec, we tip them outside the shed into there while we decide what we're going to do with them. So we call it the wet tip area. Storing grain isn't just as easy as putting a big shed up and tipping it in a pile. Obviously we've seen it's got to be monitored and kept cool, but also you need a weigh bridge because you need to weigh in and out so that everyone knows that what you've put in the shed and took out the shed is matches the weight that they've sold. And then also you need some of the equipment that's in here. So when the grain comes in, we need to make sure that it makes spec, and there's nothing wrong with it that's going to make any of the grain around deteriorate. So if it comes in too wet and starts to rot, it could damage other people's grain that's coming dry. So we have to sample it through this thing. Doesn't look a lot, it looks like a microwave on its side, I suppose, but this is a computer that measures the moisture. So we pour it in the top, press this button, comes out the bottom, gives us a reading similar to what's on the screen now. That would have been one of the last samples that we did. One of them's about £5 grand. We also have to check it for different admixes, we call it. So that is we put different things in these sieves, shake it, measure it with highly accurate scales, check there's no impurities, and if there is any, how many grams they represent in a 100-gram sample, and then that tells us the percentage of grain in it, the percentage of impurities in that grain, and if it's too high, we can reject it. The other thing as well with storing grain is when it comes in fast, it comes in at harvest. You know, you might get 14 wagon full a day, of which you've got to weigh in, sample them, check the right, tip them, push it up as high as you can and stockpile it. Because if you don't push it up all the time, the shed will get full and you'll be at the door and it's not high enough at the back and you can't get the extra 1,000 ton in. So it's sort of a full-time job and it's full on in the summer when it's happening. Yesterday's quiz question was this: it is a scraper off the back of the Sumo. I'll go and show you. This is one of them scrapers where it's not worn. You can see the difference. It's that other one that worn's about there. This is here, off the Sumo. For anyone that doesn't enjoy Diversification Sunday and likes machinery, there's a 12-metre horse drill tucked up nicely in the shed, waiting for spring. And then here's Class Lexion 8700 combine, tucked up, waiting for summer. So there's your machinery fix for today's video. Been arguing over the weekend with a guy on Twitter about glyphosate. He was basically shared a tweet from, Chris Packham shared a tweet from Wild Justice, which is basically him and his cronies, talking about how glyphosate is bad. Now, it just really, really winds me up that they say that when they're bird lovers, and glyphosate is brilliant for protecting sort of ground nesting birds and also providing habitats over winter for birds that we can then kill off with glyphosate to then direct drill other things into it and saving soils. Anyway, they all think they're amazing because they think all chemicals are bad. They don't realise that if glyphosate was invented today, it'd win a Nobel Peace Prize. Anyway, quickly, here's a little bit of maths because this guy told me that we douse our fields with chemicals. So glyphosate, 1.5 litres of glyphosate, probably use that to kill a cover crop off per hectare. Of that 1.5 litres, there's 360 grams in each litre. So when you work it all out, it's 54 grams to the hectare, or 21 grams per acre, mixed with 40 litres of water per acre. That is, so 40 litres of water with 21 grams or 210 mil as well of glyphosate in it per acre. It's not even, I said drizzle. He said, he laughed. It's not even drizzle. It's not even a mist. A morning dew will be more than 40 litres to the acre. But they're just completely out of touch with agriculture and don't understand that we don't douse the fields with chemicals. It's expensive and we only use it when we need to. But also because we want to no-till, we want to kill off the weeds so we don't have to go with other herbicides that are more harmful. We go in with glyphosate because it's safe and you can drink it. And if you were a bird nesting, or if you were a baby rabbit or a baby leveret, which is a baby hare, what would you sooner do? Get sprinkled by a mist of water containing hardly any active ingredient to it that you just like shake off because, like I say, you can drink it? Or would you be sooner hit with a big piece of steel on the back of a tractor burning loads of diesel, turning the soil up and down, which would basically just squash your nest or kill you or hit you on the head and that'd be it, or earthworm and it rips it in half? Or would you just have a little bit of a mist go over you and then you can carry on still living in your habitat? The whole world is full of people that are so out of touch of how food's grown. And then you come out with this other fact going, oh, 95% of grains that are grown are for feeding animals. No, barley, sorry. I mean, the guy's deluded. There's a lot of barley grown that turns into whiskey and beer. Then after that, they feed it to animals. Some will go straight to animals. But he's just cherry-picked what facts he wants to talk about and knows nothing about the rest of the whole food chain. And, you know, what are we going to eat? Meat is a very good place to store protein and grow protein. And if you've got grass, if you can only grow grass on your land, putting an animal grazing it and turning it into a meat, which is a protein that's storable without having to fridge it or having to make it in a lab with other chemicals like this you know, fake meat, that is the best thing to do. And obviously then you're getting the muck off it to grow more food. Some people just don't understand the food chain. And also, going back to eating grasses, well, we can't digest grass, but if you go back to just eating vegetables and fruit, you know, we've evolved by eating meat. You know, we've invented the internet, we've invented YouTube, because we eat meat and our brains have grown to develop that. Some of the smartest species in the world, different birds and stuff, are meat eaters, and people just need to understand that. So, a little bit of a rant there, but the guy knows nothing about glyphosate. That's about it for today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for the guests' outros. Don't forget, send them landscape. And if you're telling me for the birthday bumper, I need to know the surnames as well. And only send it on the day of the birthday, not weeks before. Thanks for watching again. See you all tomorrow. And here's a guest outro.